We are back with more March Madness. We got through the first round, Jeremy and I, with the help of some friends. We went to something called Adam 2024 last week with a bunch of other content creators. I'll miss some names, but people like Alex were there. Jenna was there, Corvée, some people from Tantrum House, JT from Flip Side of Gaming, all sorts of new people that we met. They all contributed their votes to determine who moved on from the first round to our Elite 8, our Great 8. I'm not sure if any of those are TM'd or anything like that, but we're going to go with it. And Jeremy and I are going to reveal that to you here today. And then in the comments below, you're going to help us decide which of these 8 move on to the Final Four and potentially the championship. So be sure to comment below as we go through this or after the fact, just to let us know where you stand on each of these matchups. Jeremy, are you ready?
I'm ready. I haven't seen these matchups. I'm a little worried because once I got there and we started playing games with all these people, it's very interesting to see what people play and like what people are interested in, because we're not necessarily worried about content. We're just playing these games. So the surprise, I'm sure there's going to be some surprises, but I still stand on what I thought before. So here we go.
Yeah, it was interesting. There was a mix of people there, and we're going to see maybe some Cinderella stories, maybe some upsets, maybe some really close games. But we're going to jump right into it. The first matchup we talked about was Wormspan and Mlem. And as we could expect, Wormspan kind of rolled this one.
Okay.
Mlem, I think, got a couple votes out of the group that were voting. And just to remind you all, we weighted the votes. Anyone who'd played both games or had experience with both games, their vote was weighted 3. Anyone who'd played one, their vote was worth 2. And anyone who'd just wanted to vote, their vote was worth 1 if they didn't have experience with either. We thought that was the best way to go about it. But yes, Wormspan kind of rolled on this one.
And that one actually was pretty fair because I think they were playing a max player count game So they played a max player count game of Mlem there. So for people who hadn't played it, they played it there. I haven't played my copy yet, but I mean, come on, it's Wormspan. It's a follow up to a million sale plus game. So
Wormspan is the juggernaut, I think. There's a few other big titles here, but Wormspan moved on, and they're going to face up against the matchup Divinus and King of Tokyo Origins. Divinus, actually, this was a fairly close one. Divinus moves on to face Wormspan. King of Tokyo Origins, I gotta say, it got more votes than I expected.
Yeah.
More people had experience with King of Tokyo, which gave it some potential points there. But even some of the people who voted who had some experience with King of Tokyo, but had not yet played their copy of Divinus, which I know some of us are all in that boat, they were more interested and excited about what Divinus was going to do, so that one took the points.
This seems a little MVM charged there, a little push.
We're big Divinus fans.
You are a big Divinus fan. I am actually, I'll blow the lid off this. I am actually going to record some content for Divinus here in a couple weeks. I'm really going to put it to the test. I'm interested. I went from not interested in this game to interested. So I would have probably still leaned towards that one anyway if I was personally picking. So
yeah, truth be told, I certainly lean that way. And I will let you know, full transparency, I was the one going around gathering the votes. And I was sitting there right beside the people as they answered my question to see which way they'd vote. So to whatever degree I had any influence, I will take that blame.
Okay, buddy. Okay. All right.
But I feel everyone voted their hearts. They didn't let me pressure them.
All right, buddy.
The next. So what do you think? Wormspan and Divinus are matching up, Jeremy. Are we just going to see Wormspan keep rolling at this point?
It's gonna be hard to top the big one, right? So you're hoping you find up another matchup on some other one that goes like, oh, so we shall see. And also the people are going to be part of this. So please make sure you're participating. We'll talk about it towards the end, but still make sure you're participating, because if you want to take the big one down, because you know there's Stormmeyer haters out there. Trust me.
Yeah, there's lover and haters.
There's some lovers and haters of all these titles and publishers and whatever. So
I'm going to be looking in the comments, though, so I'm going to be interested to see how many publishers actually get people in here involved. Not that any of the publishers really care that much about
Not that they really care about an Elite 8 of them. Really.
All right, so the next matchup was Rats of Wistar and Faraway. This was an interesting one because they're such different games. And I kind of expected Faraway to move on, but Rats of Wistar took this, and I think it's for one main reason. So many people that were at Adam with us were all very much looking forward to and anticipating getting Rats of Wistar to the table.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had had some experience with Faraway. I think there was only a couple people who hadn't. And I think you and I may have been the only people who had actually played Rats of Wistar.
Yeah.
But again, this was one of those things where people just had more faith in that game long term, I
Yeah.
think. So it came out on top.
Well, I mean, also part of that voting was like if you're just interested, right? So,
Yep.
you play a lot of Faraway. Faraway is on BGA, so if you wanted to play it online, you could play it. So, sometimes those games get a little bit less credit. I get it. For me, it was an average game anyway, so I'm glad I got taken down. But that's okay, glad I got taken
yeah,
down.
check out Jeremy's content. He's plugging his content again,
all
everybody.
right,
Go
so
watch
whatever.
his review.
No, I'm just saying, like I figured it would get steamed out at some point anyway. But glad to see it going to the first round. Let's just say that.
Yeah, so to steal a line from your review, it's okay to be okay unless you're in the tournament and you get knocked out in round one.
Yeah.
Okay. The next matchup, I'm not going to bury the lead. This was an upset. We have Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux taking down Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. Jeremy, how do you feel about this?
Ooh, man, MVM with that shim dollars, man. Man, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Shipwrights took down Sleeping Gods. Oh my goodness. Are you kidding me? Sleeping Gods, the game that I think back in the day gave it a 10 out of 10. This is the follow-up sequel to it. It was my number 3 solo game. Get out of here. Who were we who are we at this ranch with? That is crazy.
So
That's
as you can all
crazy.
imagine, clearly Jeremy voted for Sleeping Gods. I will tell you, this one was a tough one. I've only had a tiny bit of experience with it. Some people hadn't played Distant Skies, but we counted some of their experience basically having played Sleeping Gods. But yeah, this one, it wasn't a blowout or anything. It was relatively close, but Shipwrights came out on top. No. So Shipwrights is facing up against Rats of Wistar. I think this is a complete toss-up. What do you think, Rats or Shipwrights here? The thing is with Shipwrights is
it's wild, dude. That's so wild.
Yeah, what do you think?
Anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, if I had to guess,
anything is possible.
Yeah, clearly anything is possible in this tournament. More on that in a second.
Yeah.
But I would say since Shipwrights is a redo, sort of it's a new version of a game that existed before. Okay. Maybe Rats will win some points for being sort of the completely new original game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that is the matchups in the West, as it were. Now we're going to go over to the East, and like I said, talk about crazy situations. The first matchup was Inventions, a Vital Lacerda game.
Don't you dare.
Versus Draft and Write Records. Jeremy, do you want to know who won? Let me tell you, it was a Cinderella story. It was Draft and Write Records with a convincing upset over Inventions.
What?
I think Jeremy's quitting.
Is this
everybody.
like, you know what, David? Is this sponsored by FanDuel or something? Like, this is ridiculous.
It sounds like it's sponsored by Inside Out Games.
This is not valid. Like, you got to be kidding me. Inventions gets beat by.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, mad respect to both games. I played Draft and Write Records, and I was actually surprised that I really liked the game. I did like the game, but there's just no way. No way.
Yeah, well, this again comes down to the mix of people that were there.
Right.
There are heavy gamers, and there are not so heavy gamers, or even omni gamers. And I think Draft and Write, which is a solid blank and write game, plus it was one of the first that I had ever played that used the drafting mechanic as the core mechanic driving it.
Nice try, David. I'm blaming Sarah Meadows of Tantrum. Yeah, I'm blaming.
I think it's. We don't want to out anyone.
I'm going to out people. I'm outing people. You got to be kidding me.
I think she might have voted for Draft and Write.
I know how much she loves roller right. So I kind of.
To be fair, a lot of people voted for Draft and Write, so it was a pretty big upset. And I have to tell you, when I showed Connor at Inside Up this brackets, he was like, "Oh, thanks a lot. Put me up against Inventions."
Yeah,
well, I guess one and done is fine. And little did he know that they would move on. The little engine that could moved on to the next round, but they are going to face up against the winner. The winner between Veil of Eternity and Gnar, which is probably the one matchup where I took it to everyone during the voting, and they were like,
tough.
"What? No! How could you put these two games against each other? They feel like very similar types of games. They play very different from one another, but they fit that same bill in terms of the amount of time that it takes, the weight of the game, just the general vibe they give off. But Veil of Eternity, and I will say some of my bias may be seeping through right now.
Oh boy,
Veil
yeah.
of Eternity took down Gnar, and Veil moves on to take on Draft and Write Records. First of all, Jeremy, what do you think about the matchup with Veil and Gnar?
All right.
How do you feel that went down?
I think Veil of Eternity is a good game. I think Gnar is a better game. When I played Gnar, I was very excited to play it since last year. But when I finally got a chance to play it, I was blown away how great that game is. 30 minutes and it's done, and it's got nice little combos you pull off. It just feels like a really smart, compact design. That one you can play on BGA too, so I'm assuming people who are champions of it have probably played it a lot as well. So tough matchup for first round. Would have been interesting to maybe face off against some of the other ones, but
maybe
that's the way it falls.
Yeah, I would agree with almost everything you said except for one thing, that it's better than Veil of Eternity, because Veil of Eternity is the better game, in my opinion, and the opinion of the voters in this bracket.
Right.
It moves on to take on Draft and Write Records. We've got a couple more matchups to talk about. The next one is Imperium Horizons and Sultan
The way you're looking
C.
at the way you're looking at me.
Jeremy's getting disappointed left and right here.
Who are
I'm
these
looking
people?
at him off camera
Who are
here.
those
I mean-
people that I was just with for 4 days? Who are they? But that just goes to
People
show
who
you.
love DeVere.
That just goes to show. Yeah, they love DeVere. Okay, they love DeVere. All right, but you know what? You're right. They love DeVere, so they definitely.
Yeah, I think it is. I
My
mean,
goodness.
honestly, to be fair, DeVere has been on kind of a wave here for the last couple years. Most recently with White Castle last year. Everyone's loving what they're putting out. This is the next one. It's a heavier one. I haven't played this yet, but I've heard really good things.
Yeah.
It is one of their heavier games, probably one of their drier games of all the games that they've been putting out recently. But yeah, it was enough to take down Horizons. I think Imperium Horizons probably just didn't have the experience among all the players.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people have tried it, but maybe not enough of the people that were at them anyway.
Yeah, I think Imperium Horizons is a very specific niche type of game. It's made for like
Yep.
heavier gamers. Plus, it's a heavier card game, which is not something everybody's looking for. It's a niche kind of game. But for me, it's everything I want.
Yeah, you love it.
I just don't understand. I'm not understanding enough. But I am. I should say that Sultan Sea is in my Amazon cart right now. I need to make a choice. So I'm probably going to buy it and check it out. I've heard nothing but
I
great
might
things
ask
about it.
Jeremy to share a screen grab of his Amazon cart just so we can see all the things that are sitting in there. The last matchup, this one was the Battle of the A games. If you watched Tantrum House's video on Saturday morning, they talked about all sorts of A games. I don't know if these two were on the list, though. Agemonia and Aqua. This one was the closest matchup, and it was interesting. There's a few details that we learned throughout the week. A few people had experience with both. I was one of them. Agemonia, the people who've played it, they love it. The people who haven't played it, they just don't know anything about it. And a lot of people had played Aqua. Now, there were some interesting things that came up about Aqua while we were there. There was some confusion in the rule book with one of the rules talking about it that had kind of tainted some people's experience playing it when they found out the way the rule was supposed to be correctly at least interpreted in their mind. The game gets a lot better. Otherwise, it had been played a lot that made it feel more suffocating than the game actually is. No pun intended, since it's underwater. But Agemonia,
David, that was dark.
Ultimately, Agemonia.
That's really dark, David.
I'm glad Jeremy caught it. Did you, everybody?
That was dark,
we might be losing Jeremy. I don't know if you watched our last video on Meeple Madness, but there's a moment where we go off the rails for sure.
Oh my God.
Agemonia just edged out Aqua, and this is probably the closest we had to sort of like an overtime buzzer beater sort of win. But Agemonia is moving on to face up against Sultan Sea.
Wow.
Jeremy, Sultan Sea and Agemonia. Could be interesting because I think there's probably more experience out there with Sultan Sea.
Yeah. I think by the timing, yes. And Agemonia is a very niche title simply because some people just aren't into dungeon crawl adventure type games, whereas like more people are into the, Devere. Devere is a very popular brand, so I get it. But I don't know. You never know. I would never know. I mean, at this point, man, it's wild.
It is.
There's biases everywhere. This is sponsored by FanDuel, MVM, Hype Powers, all that stuff.
I only wish, sir, I wish we could get a sponsorship from FanDuel.
I know, I do too.
Is that why you're saying it so much? FanDuel, if you're watching,
I'm wishing it into existence.
We'll change the whole channel just to have brackets and put games against each other. We'll put publishers against each other, designers,
hey, man,
head to head.
I'll do it all. AG1 greens, give us a holler. Everybody. Hey, everybody.
Can you tell we watch content?
We watch a lot of content.
But that is the Great Eight, the Elite Eight, for lack of a better way of putting it, the last 8 games left in our tournament, moving on to then 4, then to the championship. And we want your help to determine which of these 8 games move on to that Final 4. So definitely get down in the comments and vote on each and every one of those. Again, it's Wormspan versus Divinus, Rats of Wistar versus Shipwrights, Draft and Write versus Veil of Eternity, and Salton Sea versus Agemonia. Vote for your games. We will be back probably sometime within the next week for the whole thing. And I think what Jeremy and I will do is take that Final 4, and he and I will kind of go head to head to determine which games kind of move on and which game is ultimately crowned champion.
All right.
So you're going to have to put your trust in our hands there.
Yes, I like a little control. But please, everybody, put your input in there, because that will be taken into account. We want to kind of make sure we're representing what's going on here with our titles. Should be really fun. I'm looking forward to it.
It will be really fun. Again, and until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.